Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Apollo Art Analysis. Today we're going to be looking at a piece by the artist Creature, and the artist handle online is creature.moon if you want to go check out that real quick. And so this piece was inspired by the hit film Howl's Moving Castle by Studio Ghibli. And in this piece, we're going to be talking a bit about center contrast. We're going to talk about the divine energy here. We're going to talk about the size of the spatial composition, and then we're also going to connect it to the story quite a bit as well. So let's jump right into it. So in your initial introduction, you're likely caught with just the glow in the center here, right? You see each one of these star children kind of form a ritual ring around our center subject here. And each one of their heads has that kind of glowing ethereal spark. And each one of those also provides a source of light as well, alongside their form of the greater body. And so that really draws our attention whenever you're first seeing this piece. It's very cosmic. You feel like you're in the sky amongst the stars as well, which is quite fitting because these are star children. And so whenever I take a look at this piece, you'll see how the light really contrasts the center and it draws all this visual energy to the center region. And so that, of course, calls your attention to the center as well and really forces your perspective into this center spot of the spatial composition. And with this kind of light on dark contrast, that really accents and emphasizes the form of the placement of these elements to the highest degree possible. So that's also important to note as well. In the realm of color, you see this really blue-purple spatial composition, and it feels like they're quite close to the analog colors on the color wheel. So that's going to be green, blue, and purplish, and those all really complement each other really nicely. So there's a really interesting kind of color palette here. You see little sparks of red and yellow, so that of course does deviate from those analog colors of the green, blue, and purple. But that type of diversity is actually what really calls your attention to the center even more. So with that in mind, we can kind of consider it as a multi-layered contrast or a multi-layered emphasis, whether it's color, placement, light value, and etc. on that point. So in the region we have, like we said, the amount of color and kind of light within the visual spatial composition here in the center that really calls our attention, and that is of course right because of that energy, and that energy is quite different when compared to other regions of the spatial composition. You have these slight stars that really do have little bits and fragments or bursts of energy across here, and this of course is in midnight black, but the most visual energy is here in the center region. So that's really important to note. It calls your attention instantly and it really holds it there. And so jumping into the story now, in the beginning of Howl's Moving Castle, you'll see that the Witch of the Waste gives her a visit and flies through her to curse her into an old woman. And eventually Sophie kind of wanders around and she finds Howl's Moving Castles. And so she's of course looking for the cure, and she strikes a deal with Howl to clean the castle in exchange for residents and living there. And of course she can't clean Howl's room, so everywhere except for that room. And so Howl himself, he's a wizard who kind of went off on his own path and kind of broke the bonds of what you would say the traditional path, and he kind of uses his magic for, in the words of Madame Sulliman, his own selfish reasons. And so because of that, Sulliman is really out to get even both of them. And he saves Sophie in the beginning as well, so that's also important to note. But early on, not early in the movie, kind of later in the movie, but early in Howl's life, he makes a pact with one of these star childs, and that's actually what kind of gives him that divinity, or gives him that power. So that's interesting to note, and it kind of possesses him, where you had this duality where on one hand he is the wizard, but on the other hand he is that kind of dark bird figure as well. So the star children are kind of these magical entities, and you can see them as personified forms of shooting stars. And Madame Sullivan casts them whenever she's trying to cast a spell on someone. So she casted it on the Witch of the Waste, but she also casted it on Howl and Sophie as well. And because of that, Madame Sullivan is quite upset with those two, because he and she are both using the magic for their own purposes. They're kind of lost souls, and they're not really committing to the discipline or the respect of the magic which they have been granted. So Sullivan Madame Sullivan really cast that spell onto them in order to do that. So Sullivan always kind of casts these magical circles where the stars or the star children just appear, of course, like shooting stars, and then they create this ring around the subject or the target, and then they kind of perform that ritual. So you see exactly what's happening here. You see that in the form, and you see how they're kind of trapping the center subject in here and performing that kind of ritual. And there's kind of these shadows casted there as well, as if there's a center light source, and those also dance around. So just a ton of layers to this piece, and there's a really kind of magical or divine element to that, which is also interesting to note as well. And so in the movie, you'll see that Howl and Sophie are trapped by Madame Sullivan's spell, and they're kind of up in the sky, and the shooting stars all, or the star children all place themselves around Sophie and Howl, and then they perform that ritual. So they of course break free of that quote unquote trap and then move past that. But those are all, the star children really intrigued me, because I actually drew something that resembled the star children a long time ago, and I wonder where I took that inspiration from, or whether I saw this movie or a long time ago or something like that. So really interesting piece. I love this piece a ton. And Studio Ghibli released Howl's Moving Castle, I believe in about 2004, and it has, wide critically acclaimed success. One of the most successful Japanese films in history, and it grossed well over $400 million easily. So really a pop culture icon as well. A bunch of people know this movie, so it was only a matter of time before I came across it. And this, of course, is in the form of a fan art piece coming from Creature, the original artist named Creature. And Creature really likes this movie, and of course you can see that in the representation or the replication of that inspiration here. And so Studio Ghibli is a incredibly popular animation studio, and they've created some of the most iconic works of current pop culture here, whether it's in Japan or just around the world in general. And so the original artist, Creature, created this, of course, inspired from that. And Creature is an amateur artist working primarily in the medium of digital paint. And Creature creates, a lot of fan art, but also kind of goes on their own path as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Go check out some of Creature's other pieces. I hope you guys learned a bit about Howl's Moving Castle. Go check out the movie if you haven't seen it before. Just some, really kind of magical or even divine themes coming from this piece. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. Go check out some of other Creature's other pieces. My name is Apollo. This was Apollo Art Analysis, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to support our work directly, please check out our Apollo community tokens. Apollo Art Exchange is an ecosystem of art appreciation which elevates artists each and every day. Thanks for listening.